Hey everyone, Espero here, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a crazy week for FEH, and we've got another unit builder for today, but we'll finally be taking a departure from all the pirates we've been discussing so far. As you can probably tell just from looking at the screen, today we'll be talking about Resplendent Olwen, the newest unit to be getting the Resplendent treatment as included in the FEH Pass. Now, Olwen's a really interesting choice for the FEH Pass. She kind of has a reputation amongst the player base for being notoriously weak. However, let's take a closer look at her stats and deduct whether or not these assumptions of her are actually correct. At 5 stars level 40, Olwen's neutral stats read as HP 34, Attack 26, Speed 34, Defense 20, and Resistance 30. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, these stats kind of speak for themselves. 34 HP is fairly low but can be ignored if the unit's got high attack, as seen with a lot of glass cannons. However, with only 26 base attack, Olwen has some of the lowest base attack in the game. In my opinion, bolstering her attack up should be the #1 priority for anyone trying to use Olwen offensively, especially in conjunction with her weapon, which we'll get to in just a moment. Now, it's incredibly important to note that Olwen does have a super boon in attack, bringing that 26 attack up to 30 if you manage to get lucky with her boons. She desperately needs this attack, so I would strongly recommend using this super boon. As far as her other stats go, 34 speed is by no means terrible, but in our current speed meta, she is definitely going to be outsped without some serious investment. 20 base defense is low, meaning she won't want to be taking any physical damage, and 30 resistance is alright, but it still won't make her a tank without seriously abandoning her other stats altogether. Overall, Olwen suffers from being a Book 1 unit on top of being a ranged cavalry unit. A lot of Book 1 stat spreads haven't aged well, and because of her movement type, she is further restricted in the skills she can equip, the amount of dragon flowers she can use, and of course, the lower stats. Now, her Resplendent skin does help her out a little, although I don't know that it completely redeems her stat spread. As a reminder, Resplendent units get an additional +2 points added to each of their stats, so at the very least, we welcome that slight increase to her attack. Now, as far as her weapon goes, she's got Dire Thunder, a blue tome with 9 might. Much like Reinhardt, this is basically a brave tome, meaning that it attacks twice on the player phase, but at the cost of lowering her base speed by -5. Like with any units using a brave weapon, you want to stack their attack as high as possible, because remember, you're attacking twice. 4 times if your unit's fast enough. And so in order to get the most bang for your buck, we're going to want to salvage her attack as much as possible, especially since she doesn't have any weapon refines available just yet. That being said, let's finally switch gears and take a look at how we can best utilize Olwen once we throw in some skills. On to build number 1. Alright, so for our first build, we're going to attempt to honor Olwen's Dire Thunder and pile her attack up as high as possible. For that reason, we are definitely going to make sure to nab that super boon in attack and then throw in Death Blow 4 into her A slot. This skill grants +8 attack on the player phase, which makes perfect sense given the nature of our weapon. Similarly, we are also plugging in Death Blow 3 into her S slot, which can of course be found in the Sacred Seal Forge. Together, these two skills grant her +14 attack on the player phase, which brings her total attack up from 41 to 55. In her B slot, Lull Attack Res might be her best option. Lull skills are some of the best B skills exclusive to cavalry and infantry units, and with it, she automatically inflicts -3 to the enemy's attack and resistance, while also neutralizing any bonuses to those two stats on the foe. Lull skills are an easy way to shut down enemies with bonus doubler, blade tome users, or visible buffs in general. Do keep in mind that with the -3 resistance to the foe, this essentially translates to an additional +3 to our attack, bringing that figure up to 58 on the player phase, which is much more workable when we remember that she's attacking twice. For her C slot, I threw in Res Smoke, as smoke skills in general tend to be very reliable, regardless of how highly invested or budget-friendly our build may be. With it, she'll inflict -7 resistance on any foes within a 2-tile radius. Should she be danced back up, this will allow her to hit even harder on each consecutive engagement. As for her assist skill, it's worth mentioning that Olwen does in fact come with reposition, which is certainly convenient. As so many of you already know, it is my preferred assist skill, so I would definitely recommend keeping it on her. And lastly, for her special, I decided to tack on Moonbow, which only has a cooldown cost of 2. I generally tend to prefer Moonbow on units with lower attack, and with its low cooldown cost, she'll definitely have it activated and ready immediately after the first engagement on the player phase. And that is basically it for our first build. It's pretty straightforward in the way that it stacks as much attack on her as possible, but it's definitely the easiest way to best utilize any Brave weapons. Now, I do recognize that a lot of players might also be inclined to completely scrap Dire Thunder, and so if this is the case, I tweaked our current build and made a few adjustments that revolved around her using a Blade Tome instead. As some of you might know, Blade Tomes take the total sum of the bonuses on a unit and add them as a damage boost, making Blade Tomes some of the cheapest but most effective ways to build a unit. So in order to make the most out of this new weapon, I replaced Olwen's C skill with Rouse, Speed, and Defense, which can be found in the 4-star summoning pool thanks to Ferdinand. This skill grants Olwen plus 6 speed and defense at the start of a turn, so long as she doesn't have any allies directly adjacent to her. This translates to plus 12 attack, keep that in mind. And since we've already got her speed and defense covered, it makes sense for me to toss in Attack Res Link as a means of getting more bonuses on her. With this skill, Olwen gains an additional plus 6 to her attack and res whenever she uses a movement assist skill or is a target of a movement assist skill. Assuming both her Link skill and Rouse skill activate, we're looking at plus 6 to each of her 4 main stats. 6 times 4, that's 24, meaning that thanks to her Blade Tome, she gets an additional plus 24 attack. That's 24 attack from her Blade Tome and an additional 6 from her Link skill because, yes, they stack too, bringing our total up to plus 30 attack, which she definitely needs. Keep in mind that this doesn't even factor in the other plus 14 she gets from the double death blows, so there's definitely some potential in there, although this could all change if Olwen ever gets a refine, which would imply that Reinhardt would have to get a refine since they share the same weapon, and that is a reality that I'm not sure any of us are ready to face. Okay, on that note, we are done with build number 1. For our next and final build, I want to flip the script and see if Olwen is better off playing a more support-oriented role. On to build number 2. Alright, so for this build, Olwen is aiming to provide as much support to her allies while also doubling as a magic wall. We are completely abandoning her attack stat and instead piling onto her resistance, so that at the very least she can soak up some damage from oncoming magical threats. It's for this reason that we opted for a res boon and plugged Fortress Defense Resistance 3 in her A slot. A popular choice for tanks, this skill grants plus 6 defense and resistance to her base stats at the cost of reducing her attack by -2, which works perfectly with what we're going for in this build anyway. In order to beef out her resistance even further, I've tacked a Res Refine onto her weapon, which is the Silver Goblet Plus. This weapon has 12 might and comes with a built-in Distant Guard effect. What that means is that it provides an in-combat buff of plus 4 defense and resistance to any allies within 2 spaces when attacked by a ranged threat. It's perhaps one of the best support-oriented blue tomes, and it's fairly accessible, especially if you've got a spare Rinea lying around from last year. Speaking of which, you'll notice that in our C and S slots, we are using Distant Guard 3. Yes, this skill has the same effect and it does stack. That means that when combined with the Silver Goblet, Olwen is able to provide plus 12 defense and resistance to her nearby allies, which is very nice. Being a cavalry unit will be especially handy in this situation, as it'll allow her the flexibility of positioning herself close to her allies to ensure that she's providing them the support that they need. And lastly, for some additional support, we've got the combination of her assist skill and her B skill. For her assist, I actually decided to get rid of reposition. Shocking, I know. And replace it with a rally attack speed skill, which grants plus 6 attack and speed to the target ally. I don't normally use rally skills, but in the rare case that I do, it's because we've got a ruse skill in our B slot, which brings us to defense and resistance ruse 3. When Olwen uses a rally skill or is a target of a rally skill, she'll inflict both guard and -5 defense and resistance to any foes within cardinal directions. I think that ruse skills are generally underrated, and seeing as how they're exclusive to cavalry and infantry, I think that they make a fantastic addition to any support-based cavalry build. Now keep in mind that the rally skill and ruse skill are both flexible and can be switched out to fit the needs of your team. I just chose these two specifically for the sake of expressing my point. Anyway, that is it for build number 2. Not gonna lie, I actually really like this second build. Plus 12 defense and resistance against ranged threats is no joke, and with the additional Rally Ruse combo, she'll be able to buff up her allies, debuff her foes, and still soak up some magical damage. Honestly, not bad. Lastly, here are what Olwen's stats look like at plus 10. Unfortunately, I do believe Olwen is still 5-star locked, or at least at the time of recording this video she still is, making her quite rare and difficult to build up. I'm not sure that she's the first unit I'd recommend merging up since she faces some stiff competition from many other Blue Tome users, but hey, if you love Olwen then by all means give her everything you've got. The Resplendent art looks fantastic anyway, so you might as well. Anyway, that is it for today's video. I actually had a lot of fun making this video, definitely more fun than I usually do or would have expected from Olwen of all people. If you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know in the comments if you're building an Olwen or what plans you have for your Resplendent Olwen. She might just be repositioned fodder for all we know. And as a reminder, I do stream on Saturdays and Sundays here on YouTube and Twitch. If you've got some time next weekend and are looking for some fun Fire Emblem shenanigans, feel free to drop on by. Anyway, thanks again for watching, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Happy saving, happy summoning, and take care. Bye.